me, first of all, how are you since time, since our last lesson together? Is there anything new that's been
Uh,
happening?
I think everything went very well. I mean,
Everything went
nothing special
well.
happened. And
Hmm.
my sister just passed the college entrance examination.
It's wonderful. Congratulations.
Yes,
That's great.
congratulations to her. I mean,
Yes, to her, absolutely. Oh, I'm very pleased to hear that.
but I heard about he did not a very good job. I mean,
Ah,
and two of my friends also take this year's examination.
so it's something that they've already done?
They're already done.
So
And
you wouldn't say two of my friends take, you would say
took,
two of my friends, that's right,
yeah,
took the
yeah,
examination.
took the
That's right.
examination. Yeah, two of
Mhm.
my friends took the examination.
That's good. And were they successful? Do they have their results already?
No, no, this year they say this year's is very difficult for them
Ah,
compared with years before.
right.
And so they both think they not do well, even though
Mm-hmm.
they are we are classmates in middle school, but in senior high school they choose to reread. I mean, how to express it like they failed the first examination and they
Yes,
give it another chance to take another one. I mean,
right.
they spend 1 year. How to say, like, spend one
They had
year.
to resit a whole year. They had to retake a whole year.
Yeah, they had to retake a whole year to
Mm.
prepare the examination.
Mm-hmm.
And now they say they have no chance, they have no possibility. It's impossible for them to go to first class
Mm-hmm.
school. I mean, China have three class school, and
Yes.
first class the best.
Yes.
They have
So
no,
you would
yeah,
say three classes of
yeah,
schools,
three classes of schools, of
three
universities.
classes of university.
Universities. Yeah.
Okay. And also earlier on, you said about them not doing well. But as it's a past, instead of they do not do well, then you need to say they did not do well in the past.
Yes.
So there's three classes of university, and they don't have a
Chance.
possibility,
Yeah.
a
Possibility
chance to go to the best
to
one.
best class, yeah, best one.
But they can still go to the second or the third class university.
Oh, yes, they maybe go to the second class. That's
Yes.
not very difficult for them. I
Mm-hmm.
think 15% of the whole
Mm-hmm.
population, I mean, for this year to attend the
Mm-hmm.
examination can
Yes.
be accessible, can be accepted to the
Mm-hmm.
second class and then go to the third class. I mean, third class is just focus on laboring and like manufacturing, like a low term of manufacturing, low term of job, no, like some
Mm-hmm.
social service, these kind of jobs. I mean,
Right.
yes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little cruel, but I think this is the way to survive in my country.
Mm-hmm.
My country is very famous for its huge population, so that
Of
the
course.
yes, so that the relationship with students to students sometimes to be competitive. I mean, they have to do
Mm-hmm.
a do a very fierce competition to get a
Yes.
chance
To get a chance,
to
not to
get a
get chance, but to get a
to get
chance,
a
because we
chance.
need the article, in
Yeah.
this case, the indefinite article, the letter A. So, um, but remember that we try to avoid the words like get, got, and gotten. So, what word could you use instead of get in this case?
We
Concern
became? Oh no, no, this is not became.
not became, but it's all about having a chance. So
Having a chance.
we
Yes.
say not to get a chance, but to have a chance. Remember always the article, in this case, the indefinite article, the letter A in front of the noun.
Yeah, to
That's
have
right.
chance.
To
Yes.
have a chance. To have
Oh,
a
yes.
chance. That's right.
Have a chance. Have a chance.
That's right.
Oh, by the way, how's everything going on with you recently? I forgot to ask about that.
Yes, everything's going fine here with the teaching, the lessons. So everything's good. Now, the situation of the coronavirus, as we're now into the month of July. So they said that they were going to prolong the lockdown until the middle of July, right about the 14th of July. But in fact, even though they said they would do that, I see that where I'm living, they basically haven't uh, prolonged it because before they were saying that they were going to end the lockdown at the beginning of July, and that's what they've done because I see that the few barriers that were still down have been lifted from the beginning of July onwards. So they decided not to follow the recommendations of the authorities to prolong the lockdown until the middle of July. So there's no lockdown anymore at the moment.
Yes.
It's just totally open, Jerry. Mm.
Even though America now face a very serious situation, but America still
Yes.
not a very strict lockdown. I mean, you can see,
Uh,
you can check nowadays
hmm.
statistic every day. I mean,
Right.
70,000 people. Today, 70,000 people
Mm.
newly became infected.
Mm.
This is the world's so-called best country, have the most advanced
Hmm.
medical.
That's right.
I mean, is that very, how do you say? Maybe for people watch your YouTube, maybe some American people, maybe I will not make
Hmm.
fun about this. Okay.
Well, there might be some American people who watch my YouTube channel,
Yes.
and it's true that it's quite surprising, as you say, that a country who has such a good medical service normally uh, doesn't seem to be able to cope with this crisis. It's true that China did a very good job finally when they did do the lockdown of Wuhan and the Hubei province, and that you were able to control the situation in China. And it's because the lockdown isn't very strict in the US, like you said, and compared to China, because in China, obviously, it was very strict indeed. But we've seen in other countries where they did a strict lockdown that the results are much more positive, are much better than in countries where the lockdown hasn't been so strict. So you're quite right, Jerry. It's surprising, but it's just a question of how strict the lockdown is and also the way in which it's followed because sometimes, well, people don't have any choice. Like in China, they were like blocked inside their buildings. The buildings were like completely blocked and they couldn't even go out of their buildings physically. But in other countries where it's only recommendations and people, just don't listen to what the authorities say, then obviously it's not surprising that there's a lot of cases of coronavirus.
Yes. Nowadays, a lot of events happen in my country, like,
Hmm.
or maybe this is about very international
Hmm.
comment. I mean, this year, June for this year,
Hmm.
China and India had uh, a clash. I mean, clash between
That's
the
right.
countries.
Yes, I saw that up in the mountains,
In
in the
Himalayas,
Himalayas. Yes.
Israel, and no, no, in that area.
Hmm.
I mean, even though their Prime Minister Modi already acknowledge that it's India true first intrude. I mean the
Hmm.
Chinese part. I mean
Mm.
so and so the aggressive expression in India now is very fierce. I mean
Mm.
it's not good.
Fierce. Fierce.
Fierce, yeah,
That's
fierce.
fierce.
Thank you.
That's good.
This
Hmm.
is not very good way for my country to see. I mean,
Of course.
yeah, because nowadays
Hmm.
India also face a lot of problems like a massive, uh, how do you say, lockdown and millions
Yes.
of people cannot find job. I mean, lose their job.
Not millions people, but millions of people.
Of billions of people, thank you,
That's
millions
right. Of
of
people. Hmm.
lost their jobs.
Yes, that's right.
And the coronavirus seems to be very hard to control in
Mm.
such a populous country. I mean,
Yes.
they are more populous compared to my country. They are much smaller compared to China, but the population is basically approximately very near, I mean, very near China because they have no way to control their population. They didn't take action to control the population like my country
Uh-huh.
have one child policy. Nowadays it's
Yes.
two child policy,
Yes.
but they because of the religion issue and other social issues they chose to not control the
You would
population.
say instead of religion issue, because religion is a noun, issue is a noun, we need to have the adjective describing the noun
Yes.
instead of having two nouns together, and then we would say religious, which is the adjective which comes from the noun religion, and then you would say religious issues. There we are. So instead of saying it's religion issues, you would say it's religious issues.
Religious issues. Thank you.
That's right. You're welcome.
Religious issues.
That's
They didn't take action to control the population, and
yes.
it's actually how do you say maybe this is maybe quite widely accepted by their local people, but for from a foreigner to view this, I think
Mm.
it's not a good choice. They have to control a little bit, or their resources will cannot be divided equally, and it will how to say
The- Mhm.
deteriorate the inequality.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I've just seen the population in India, and I didn't realize that the population in India has caught up with the population in China. I always
Very
thought,
near. I mean,
yes,
maybe
so,
0.1 billion, 100 million is 100 million,
well,
100 billion.
I found on the Google search that for China it's
For
1.39, which is like 1.4 billion,
yes.
but for India uh, it's 1.35, which is well, actually, it's 1.393 billion for China and 1.353 billion for India. So the
Wow.
difference between China and India is exactly uh, zero point zero 0.04 billion, which is 40 million
Billion.
difference. So there's 40 million more people in China than in India. Only 40 million difference. So it's very
Sorry.
close.
Maybe you forget to add one place, the Taiwan,
Oh,
Taiwanese,
yes.
they
This
call themselves the Republic of China. Is still a part of China, right? They have, yeah,
that's right.
they have 23 million people.
Of course. Well, of course, if we add them, then we are into the 1.4 instead of 1.39 billion. And so, yes, there's about then 50 or just a bit more million
Yeah.
difference
I
between
found
India and
that
China.
in Google such Western application, they usually will
Western
consider.
applications, plural.
Yeah, they will divide my country's map into two parts. One is the
Yes.
Republic of China, another is People's Republic of China. Actually, it's one China. This is even
Mm.
though we recognize different China, but there is definitely no country called themselves the Taiwan Republic. There's no
Mhm.
such country. That's still the Republic of China. So we are
Ah, yes.
China.
Officially, that's
Yeah,
right. Officially, it's still part of China.
yeah,
Absolutely.
officially they're part of China. They even call themselves the Taiwan province of the Republic of China. They say
Right.
they even though their authority overthrew uh, in
Mm,
mainland, but they rejoined in to the Taiwan island. They still
mm-hmm.
their official name is still not changed yet. They still
Yes.
Republic of China. This is
Mm,
very good. This is I think that foreigners should know this. Uh,
yes.
yes, there's still China. There's definitely no country called Taiwan. We use same character. We use same
Hmm.
word. We speak same language.
Yes.
We our cultural approximately 93% very similar.
Yes.
This is this cannot be denied. They are one part of
Mm,
China. China is one very big conception, not just
mm-hmm.
limited to a country's official name or other issues. This is this very big conception. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
China this conception, this term maybe has thousands years of history. I mean, should not be end for several decades division
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, political differences, such
Yes.
kind of divisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thousands history should not be cut down for several
Yes.
decades political differences.
Of course.
Okay,
Yes.
that's all I
Absolutely.
want to talk about. Oh,
But that's
yeah,
very interesting, Jerry. So thank you very much for sharing that with me. And it's interesting that I discovered that India almost has a population that's almost as big as the population of
did you
China.
ever go to did you go to India before? I mean,
No, I've never been to India before, like I've never been to China before. But I mean, in the past, I always thought that India was around about 1 billion inhabitants, and that China was like roughly 1.5 billion inhabitants, was like roughly 50% more people in China than in India. But now I see that when I look at the graph, the two lines that are going up with China on top and India just underneath, those lines are narrowing down. That means they are becoming closer and closer together. And right now they're almost touching because it's almost the same amount of population in both countries, which means that if it continues, because the Chinese graph, the line is like flattening out, but the Indian uh, line, demographic line showing the population, isn't flattening out and is just continuing to grow diagonally in a straight line, which means that they are going to intersect with the Chinese line flattening out and the Indian line just continuing diagonally up. And I don't know if it's going to be in a few years' time. I think it could be quite soon, in
yeah,
just a
it's
few
quite
years' time.
yeah, it's
That
quite soon. I also think maybe 10 years later, maybe
oh, what?
they will have the last
Yes,
population amount.
yes, not more than 10 years, I don't think. Maximum 10 years, I think, before India overtakes China, and India will be the biggest country in the world. Oh, I mean, the biggest population in the
biggest
world.
population, the biggest country is Russia.
Well, that's right. The biggest country is Russia. That's right. And
Next
India would have the
is
biggest population, and China would then have the second biggest population. Yes.
oh, okay. I mean, but this article I sent to you.
Oh,
If
yes,
you
I saw
have
that.
if you have
Absolutely.
many Americans to read this article, I don't think this is a very good choice. This is about Americans what they did in Vietnam during the
In Vietnam,
Sino-Vietnam War. I mean,
in Vietnam, well, I mean, it's part
yeah,
of history. It's
it's part of
important
history.
for everybody to know what happened because this is the truth about what happened. And so I think everybody should know about it, even if it's people from the country involved. So don't worry about the article. I think people would be happy to know about it, even the Americans. I saw you send me two links, one document and also an article about the task ahead. So shall we look at the document first, or shall we look at the task ahead first?
Maybe the task ahead first. I mean,
Okay.
this is not very aggressive if you have a lot of audiences. I don't think reading such targeting. I mean, nowadays American is how do you say? Maybe right wing of America is very popular. So a lot of
Yes.
people shouting "Make America Great Again," "American First," "American First." We
Oh,
need to
yes.
build up a war, like
Mm-hmm.
this kind of thing to prevent foreigners to come in their country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Americans value maybe changed for several after the Donald Trump became the American president. I
Yes.
think this is a little bit sad for me to say about that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think it's a very good choice. And Americans nowadays, how do you say, interviewing my country's in how do you say my country own issues like Hong Kong,
Yes.
this
That's
kind of
right.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, as a British, what do you think about your country prime minister that will offer the BNO, I mean passport for Hong Kong, for residents in Hong Kong? I mean,
Yes, I've heard of that, that the UK wants to offer passports to Hong Kong citizens if they would like to have a British passport. Now, I,
but I can
yes,
obviously tell you that these people
mhm.
come to Hong Kong. Did you know that they what they did in Hong Kong? Maybe you have no idea,
I
or
don't know
maybe
much about it,
BBC,
no.
Sky News, this kind of traditional British media will just report some part of them instead of report overview part of them.
Oh, I'm sure there must be some things which are covered up, especially things which are a little bit controversial and sensitive information. But if you know exactly what happened, then yes, that would be interesting to hear because I don't know much about it. So,
Oh,
Jerry, tell me.
you can see
Hmm.
if a group of people shouting to back up to their former master to their former colony, the Britain they say the independence they say this Britain Hong Kong should be back to
Hmm.
just a very small part of them
Hmm.
called like this, and they routing certain files. They even kill some people.
Yes, that's true. Hmm.
Yeah, they even kill people. And they
Yes.
say this is democracy, this is freedom. They have universal suffering
Hmm.
and freedom of speech.
U
And therefore,
universal suffrage.
I mean, I
It's
don't
not.
know
This is
what
the name of it. When people can vote freely, it's called universal suffrage.
oh universal suffrage. Yes,
I think that's
universal
what you're referring to, because universal suffering is when everybody is suffering at the same time, but universal suffrage is where everybody has the opportunity to
so
vote.
I think if Britain has this kind of freedom, why Scotland didn't independence, right? This is a same can be
Mhm.
same relevance to China.
Yes.
Catalonia in Spain did
Yes. That's right.
independence.
Mm-hmm.
Their independence movement cracked down. And
Yes.
for Scotland, Northern Ireland, this kind of
Yes.
also cracked down by
Mm-hmm.
British authority. So
Oh,
same
yes.
things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But BBC will say, how do you say? The BBC will say Chinese government crack down the people in Hong Kong to pursue in their own happiness. This is evil. They of course they will say things like
Mm-hmm.
this. I just
Mm-hmm.
watch it as a joke. If Scotland independence,
Mm-hmm.
what they will do, of course, send troops to crack down. And my country didn't send troops at all. It's all pleased to do that. So I don't think so.
Yes, I see what you mean. Obviously, when you consider what's happened in Northern Ireland, when there was all the trouble between Northern
Yes, I
Ireland.
also read some articles about what Britain did in Ireland. I mean,
Mm,
in like usually they call it Southern Ireland.
hmm
The plague and the famine killed a lot of Ireland people because of different religion
mm,
and the division.
hmm
They are Catholic and British is how to say? Um, mm, I forget. I forget.
hmm
British has its own how to say own
They
code
have their
of
own. Not British has its own, but you would say the British,
the
because we're
British.
talking
Yeah.
about the people in general. The British have their own. Yes, the British have their
Have
own
their own. They call how to say national religion. I don't know.
national religion.
How to
Is that what
say
you said?
it is.
Anglicanism, the Church of England?
Yeah, Anglicanism. Yes, Anglicanism.
Yes.
The Church of England. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So I'll just write that for you in the Skype chat. So it's Anglicanism, and it's also called the Church of England. Yes, which is Protestant. And then the situation in Ireland is that they're mostly
Catholic.
Catholics in Ireland. And what happened is, because the south of Ireland had their independence, and the north of Ireland, some of them wanted their independence as well, like the south of Ireland. But there was also those in the north of Ireland who wanted to stay within the United Kingdom and did not want to have independence from the United Kingdom. And
Oh yes.
so the conflict, they say that it's between Catholics and Protestants in the north of Ireland, but in fact, that's just a way of identifying really the two sides, because in fact, it's one side, the Catholics, who basically want independence for the north of Ireland, and the other side, uh, who are the Protestants, who don't want to be independent from the United Kingdom and who want to stay connected to the United Kingdom. And so really it's like a war of independence, really, between the two sides, those who want to be independent, those who don't want to be independent, and to identify them more easily, because the ones who like the South, who want to be connected with the South, they tend to be the Catholics, because they want to have the same kind of religion as the south of Ireland, where it's mostly Catholic. But the ones who want to remain with the United Kingdom is because they tend to be Protestants, because they want to be part of the Church of England, Anglicanism. So that's how they're represented. Both sides are represented by their faith, by their religion, either Catholic or Protestant. You see that, Jerry?
Oh yeah, I see that. Maybe they can do a referendum, but I don't. I think Scotland did a referendum, and the
Yes.
result is stay with the United Kingdom.
Yes.
And your country also did a referendum to vote for stay in United. No, no,
European Union.
Europe Union. I mean, but
European
your country's
Union.
majority chose to leave, right?
Well, at the time they chose to leave because when they did the referendum, it was the time of the refugee crisis. Do you remember, with all the migrants and the asylum seekers coming from the southern countries, especially countries where there was civil war, like in Syria, and a lot of unrest in these countries. And because of that, those who wanted to leave the European Union, those politicians said things that scared the British population, like saying that we would be invaded with all these refugees because the European Union was deciding to have quotas, that each
Yes.
country should have a certain amount of refugees. And so the British people were afraid that they were going to be like flooded with so many hundreds and even thousands of refugees, and they were really worried about that. That is why that at that time there were more than 50% who voted to leave the European Union because of the pressure and of them being scared by or the fear that that came from those politicians who wanted the Brexit. But now, if we were to have the vote once again, if the referendum was done again now, there were more people who want to stay with the European Union.
But it's hard to back.
But exactly, it's hard to go back and change things. So it's too.
But now Britain is now welcoming millions, how do you say, rioters from Hong Kong. That's very interesting thing.
Well, that's right, because you see,
Is that did the
yes,
referendum is that issue did the referendum or just the politicians talk about it? They did decisions by their own.
I think we didn't say by their own. You would say either on their own, so they not did a decision, but made
Or
a decision on their own instead of by their own. But there's another way that you can say it. You could say they made a decision by themselves, you see. So instead of mixing the two together, instead of saying by their own, if you want to use the word own, then you say on their own. If you want to use the word by, then you say by themselves. Can you see the difference there,
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes, very obvious, very clear. Yes, very clear.
Excellent. That's
Okay,
good.
maybe I need to read about this article.
Yes, of course. Let's read
Yeah.
this article then.
Yeah. The
And
task. Oh, sorry, you please.
so let's have a look. Right. Yes, I have it open. So I'm listening to you read then, please, Jerry.
Yes. The task ahead is enormous, and there is no
In,
not much time.
enormous.
Enormous,
Good.
and
Good.
there is not much time.
Correct. That's good.
Now in his 19th year, Noam
90th.
90th
That's
year,
right.
Noam Chomsky is still blessing US with his insights.
Not the US.
Blessing us. Sorry, blessing us. I mean,
If it was in capital letters with the word the in front, then it would be is still blessing the US. But here
yeah.
it's in lowercase rather than uppercase letters, small letters for the
us with
blessing
insights.
us. That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's on climate change. This is US, right?
Yes, now it's the US.
Now
Exactly.
it's
The
US
capital letters.
Yeah, US empire and anti-Semitism.
Good.
Sorry, this country name is
Venezuela.
Venezuela.
Very
and
good.
much more.
That's good.
Our spring issue, Pandemic Politics, is out now. It features over 120 pages of beautiful illustrations and quality writing and analysis. Sorry,
yes. No, illustrations.
Illustrations.
not ilu,
Uh, illustrations.
illustrations. That's right.
Illustrations. Yeah, illustrations.
Illustrations. That's right.
Get a discounted subscription today.
That's right. Yes.
From the onslaught
Yes.
of climate change to
Mm-hmm.
be spread of far right movement.
Spread.
Yes,
Yes.
sorry, spread of far right movements around the
Yes.
globe to
Mm-hmm.
the increased proliferation
Pr
of
pr pr
nuclear
pr
weapons,
proliferation. Yes.
proliferation,
Yes.
threats to the natural environment and democratic institutions are
Yes.
increasingly unmistakable,
Mm-hmm.
and the sense of crisis palpable. Yet
Palpable.
palpable,
Yes.
palpable, yet
Palpable. That's
with
right.
such rapid
Mm-hmm.
change, the work of Noam Chomsky remains indispensable for understanding global politics
Mm-hmm.
and the nuances,
Yes. Nuances. Yes. That's good.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so often missed by corporate media.
Corporate.
Corporate
Do
media.
you, now, do you remember what I explained last one in one of our previous lessons about the difference
Yeah.
in the pronunciation of those last three letters, ATE, as to whether it's a noun, an adjective, or a verb? Do you remember what I said about those last three letters, Jerry?
Yes. I remember. Yes.
What is the rule? What are the different ways of pronouncing those last three letters,
Uh,
ATE?
like this is corporate. No, how did this is
Corporate, not
corporate.
corporate. Corporate would be like if you have the verb to cooperate or
Corporate.
to incorporate. When it's the verb, then it would be ate. But here it's used as an adjective to describe the noun media, corporate media.
Corporate.
So
Yes.
when it's the adjective, it's corporate. When it's the noun, it's also pronounced ut at the end,
Corporate.
like a delegate, like a candidate. But when it's a verb, then it's always ate. You see the difference there, Jeremy?
Like candidate.
Right. A,
Candidate.
no, not candidate, a candidate. So a
Candidate.
candidate when it's the noun,
Yes.
or when it's a delegate,
Delegate.
when it's a noun, or it is appropriate. You see,
Appropriate.
appropriate. So that is the adjective actually, but it has the same sound of ut at the end. When something is legitimate,
Legitimate.
that's right.
Legitimate. Yeah.
Yes,
Legitimate.
yes. So whenever you see ate at the end and it's either a noun or an adjective, then it's ut. Okay.
Yes.
And when it's a verb, like the verb to delegate, you see, then it's ate rather than ut. When it's to appropriate, once again, it's ate instead of ut. You
Uh,
see that difference,
yes.
Jerry? Yes, that's good.
Oh,
Okay.
aside from his
Paradigm.
paradigm shifting contributions to the fields of cognitive
Mhm.
science and linguistics.
Yes.
Most know Chomsky as an avid critic of
Avid.
avid, avid
Yes.
critic of U.S. foreign policy, the
Yes.
propaganda model of Western mass media. Oh
Hmm.
yes, I don't like Western mass media. They brainwash the
Mm.
West people, make them mm, narrow their mind not to really know what happened outside of them, especially for Anglo-Saxon races. I mean, this is very obvious.
Hmm.
They will consider the superiority, but not a good thing to do. I mean, the white superiority, the white people superiority. This is not a good thing to do. Even though I'm not approve of BLM, some kind of disapprovements, maybe violence, but the white superiority. This is real.
That's
Is
true
yeah,
that there is a distinct bias
yeah, bias.
in
Yes, bias.
in in media, and each country tends to have their own bias because obviously the Western world, being mostly Caucasian, the whites, therefore they will tend to always reflect the Caucasians, the whites, in the best possible light and make them, always look really good compared with the others. So that's why it gives the impression of that white superiority, which you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
And it's true, it does look like it's really um, very, as you say, it's a bit like brainwashing because it's very biased and it's showing only one side of things and it's not so well balanced. But then you
Yes.
have other countries who will have their own type of propaganda and who will always show their country as being the best and the other countries as being not as good, if you see what I
Mhm.
mean.
From my point of view, I think for Chinese media, they will show a lot of things positive in Western.
Mm-hmm.
This is how to say, maybe for my generation, maybe that we know Western people
Mm-hmm.
better than for their young generation to know people from Asia. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this is my point of view. I had been to Britain, and I
Yes.
think arrogance. I mean, sometimes British tend to
Mm-hmm.
be
Yes.
a little bit. I mean,
But
this
you're
is
right. It's a different mentality. I agree with you that
yeah,
in some of these Western countries, people are very proud. People are sometimes full of themselves, like a lot of people in the Western world who, because they're quite well off, they're quite rich, they're quite powerful, and obviously, you know, that can go to a person's head and give them a mentality which is not a good mentality. So I quite agree with you that this can influence a lot the mentality of the Western world, and it can lead to obviously situations of conflict and tension because of that kind of attitude which some Westerners have, which is negative towards those who are not Westerners. It's like
yes.
discrimination. It's like racism. And we've
Yeah,
heard,
it's like discrimination, but American chose one famous for racism, famous for discrimination.
yes,
Not
yes.
only to color people, but also for female, for
Hmm.
a lot of things. They chose
Yes,
kind of president to become their 35 or
that's
45th president.
That's true. You're quite
So
right.
that's
That often the presidents of a country can reflect the mentality of a country, and a country tends to vote for a president that is like them, acts like them, speaks like them, thinks like them. And yes, as you say, it's not surprising that they have ended up with the president that they have now. And I've
yes.
only just seen, I think it was yesterday or this morning, an article in the news, according to these organizations that do surveys and statistics as to the probability of who is going to be the next president of the United States.
I think Joe Biden may be the next president.
But
Maybe several months ago, I think Trump will probably be
the
next
next,
year, 4 years.
yes,
But now, according to his terrible job for facing coronavirus, I think maybe Joe Biden will be the next president.
And you're not the only one who thinks that. A lot of people have that impression. But those who do the surveys and the statistics and who analyze the tendencies and the intentions of the population, they have come up with something really surprising. You know, the percentage of possibility or probability that they give to Donald Trump being elected President of the United States for a second time, do you know what percentage possibility they give?
70.
More than 70.
Maybe that's how do you say? Donald Trump.
90.
Yeah,
90. 90%. I was really surprised.
Yes. Donald Trump maybe not fit with to be a president. He is not a good president at all. But maybe American people like him, so
That's right.
that's American way of electing a foolish to become the president. Maybe they can choose some people younger than Joe Biden, more mental, have better brain than Donald Trump, I think. But they chose very very old people as the Democratic candidate and chose the insanity people to be the Republican president.
Yes, it is quite surprising. But you know that the American system of voting is not like each person voting directly. So it's not direct voting. It's like indirect voting because they have like special groups which are selected and which represent different parts of the people, and then it's those people who have been selected, the electoral colleges, who then vote for the president. Do you see what I mean? So it's in two steps. It's not directly in one step, but in two steps. And it's that gives sometimes very surprising results and unexpected results because of that system, you see.
Yes, like 2016, the Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, but Donald Trump won the election. Won the election.
Won the election. Yes.
Won the election. Yes. Okay, I will continue. Propaganda model of Western mass media, and more recently, the growing impact of anthropogenic climate change. Now in his 19th year.
90th
year. Chomsky continues to teach, write, lecture, and remarkably give a prolific number of interviews. His latest books include Global Discontents, Conversations on the Rising Threats to Democracy.
Yes.
Requiem for American Dream.
Requiem
for American Dream. The 10 principles of conversations. Concentrations for wealth, power, and why only us? Why only us?
Why only us? That's right. Because
why only us? Why only us?
The first letter is a capital, but the second letter is small. So that's because of the title. They have the first letter as a capital, but it's still us instead of the US in this case. So why only us? Yes.
Harrison Samphire.
Yes.
Samphire recently spoke with the renowned descendant renowned descendant and philosopher.
Dissident.
That's it. Dissident and philosopher about climate change.
Yes.
When
Venezuela
Venezuela,
Yes.
Iran,
Iran.
anti-Semitism,
Yes.
Iran, sorry,
That's
sorry,
okay.
Iran,
Yes.
Venezuela. Maybe
Yes.
if I can't pronounce this country's name, this is not very politely, but actually I really can do that. Maybe I can do the Chinese name very well,
Yes, because
but
obviously in Chinese, the names of the countries are different.
yes, yes,
So I can understand it's difficult to pronounce them in the English way. Yes.
Venezuela.
Hmm.
Anti-Semitism.
Yes,
U.S.
that's
empire,
right. It's not us. This time it's the US.
U.S. empire, and
Yes.
more. Their conversation has been
Edited.
edited for
Yes.
clarity and length.
Length. That's right.
Length.
Hmm.
Estimates from
It's
national
estimates. Remember, now
estimates.
if it's the verb to estimate, then you would be correct in
Yeah.
pronouncing the ending ate. But here it's the noun, it's an estimate. And so it's ut instead of ate. You see
Yes.
that, Gary? Yes?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Estimates.
Estimates. That's right.
Estimates from National Oceanic and Atmospheric
Atmos
Association.
Atmospheric.
Atmospheric Association suggests that if emissions remain unchanged by
Yes.
2100, sea
Yes.
levels could rise by more than 8 feet.
Yes.
This would irreversibly,
I- i-
irreversibly,
irreversibly.
irreversibly,
Good.
irreversibly affect many of world's
The
poorest and most vulnerable people.
world's,
Yeah,
yes. Hmm.
irreversibly, irreversibly,
Irreversibly.
irreversibly,
Good.
irreversibly, irreversibly.
Good.
Oh my gosh.
You're doing well. No, irreversibly, you're doing well. Yes.
Irreversibly affect
Yes.
many of the world's
Yes.
poorest and most vulnerable people. Do you
Va
think there's
vulnerable. Vulnerable.
vulnerable,
Yes.
vulnerable,
Yes.
irreversibly, vulnerable, vulnerable,
Vulnerable.
vulnerable,
That's
vulnerable?
good.
Do you think there's a chance we may avoid this?
Avoid
Avoid
this.
this.
Hmm.
If anything like that happens, the
Hmm.
calamity will
Hmm.
be on a scale that is almost imponderable.
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 That's right.
Severe, as you say, for the poorest and most vulnerable,
That's right.
but
Vulnerable.
awful enough for the rest of society as well. And
Yes.
it is not the most threatening current
Car.
projection.
Current. Yes.
Current projection.
Good.
We are approaching ominously
Good. Ominously, you said it well.
close to the
Ominously.
level of global warming.
Warming.
120
Global warming.
warming,
Yes.
warming,
Yes.
125,000 years
Mhm.
ago, when sea level were 6 to 9 meters higher than today.
Meters.
Meters,
Meters. That's
than
right.
today.
Mhm.
And the rapid melting of Antarctic sea ice,
Antarctic.
Antarctic, Antarctic
Yes.
sea ice
Hmm.
threatens to narrow the gap,
Yes.
possibly by non-linear, non
Non-linear.
non-linear,
Linear.
non-linear,
Linear. Linear.
non-linear
That's right.
acceleration,
Acceleration.
acceleration. Sorry, acceleration.
That's good. Yes.
Non-linear acceleration.
Hmm.
Some recent studies suggest
Good.
is well chance to avoid such catastrophes. No
Yes.
doubt, they are well worked out and
Worked.
well
Worked.
worked out,
Yes.
worked,
Worked.
worked,
That's it.
are well
Very.
worked out and
Hmm.
sound proposals.
That's it.
Economist Robert Pollins
Pollens.
Pollens.
Yes.
Work
That's it.
on a Green New Deal is the best I know, but the
Yes.
task ahead is enormous.
Enormous. That's it.
And there is not such much time.
Yes.
Challenge would be great even if the states were committed to overcome it.
Good.
But it is impossible to overlook the fact that the most powerful state in human history is under the leadership of what we can only be accurately described.
Accurately.
Accurately.
Accurate. Remember,
Accurate.
if it
Yes.
was a verb, it would be ate, you see?
Yes.
But as it's, in this case, an adverb, okay, which is describing the verb to describe, then we have to pronounce the ending or the ate as ut. So it's accurately described.
Accurately described as a gang of arch criminals.
Arch. That's
A daddy,
who
who
are.
are dedicated.
That's it. You said it well because it's the verb and
Yes.
it's eight.
Raising
is pronounced eight.
to the
That's
cliff with abandon.
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 That's right.
It is hard even to find words to capture the scale.
Words, remember? Words, yes.
Capture the scale of the crimes they are contemplating.
Contemplating. Yes.
A small but telling example is a
example.
It's a 500-page environmental assessment produced by Trump's National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, calling canceling new automotive emission standards. They'll have a sound argument. The study projects that by the end of the century, temperatures will have risen.
It's projects.
Yeah,
projects. That's right.
Will have risen 4 degrees centigrade.
You see, the difference between the pronunciation of that word project, because if it was the noun, it's a project, okay? Project when it's the noun.
Projects.
But here it's the verb. It's the verb, and it has the study as the subject of the verb. So it projects. It's the study that projects. And you can hear the difference in sound when you say that it projects compared to a project. You see, project is not the same pronunciation as projects. With projects, you have the intonation, emphasis, accentuation on the second syllable, acts, you see. Whereas when it's the noun, it's a project. So there, when it's the noun, the emphasis is on the first syllable rather than on the second syllable. Can you see that difference, Jerry?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Projects. In this case, it's
projects.
That's right. Yes.
That by the end of the century, temperatures will have risen 4 degrees centigrade.
Good.
Auto emotions don't add.
No, not emotions. Emissions. Auto emissions.
Auto emissions.
Yes.
Don't add that much. And since the game is pretty much over, why not have fun while we can? Fiddling while the planet
fiddling
while the planet burns.
Now, do you understand that last expression, fiddling while the planet burns?
I'm not sure about that.
Have you ever heard of what happened when Rome burnt at the time of the Romans? What happened?
Roman burns when Romans.
When the city of Rome was burning, okay, at the
Okay.
time of the Romans, the Roman Empire, there was a certain person who
Give
uh,
order.
was playing the fiddle. The fiddle is another name for a violin. So
Yes, yes.
this
The
uh,
Empire Nino. I remember.
Nero, you've heard of the
Nino.
Emperor
Yes,
Nero?
the Empire
Yes,
Nino.
Emperor Nero. That's right. He was
Killed
playing
many
the fiddle.
Christians. Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
killed many
A
Christians.
lot of a lot of persecution, and
Yeah.
he was playing the fiddle, which is like a violin, whilst Rome was burning. And some people say that he's the one who actually started the fires in Rome, so as to blame the Christians and saying it was their fault, so he could persecute the Christians even more. So you've heard of that story then?
Yes, of course, I've
and
heard that
and you
story.
see that this is like referring to that story of the Emperor Nero, you see. But there is a double meaning on that word fiddling, because it can mean playing the violin or the fiddle, as it's also called. But when somebody is doing some fiddling with the numbers or with the money, what does that mean if somebody is fiddling the accounts, like the bank accounts? Do you know what that means? If you fiddle the accounts, if you
Mm,
fiddle the money and you fiddle the
like
figures and the
corruption,
numbers? Well,
corruption.
it is like corruption. It's actually a criminal activity, a criminal act, because it's when you are falsing the figures. That is to say, you're playing around with the figures and the numbers so that you can take advantage from it with a dishonest result, with dishonest figures and numbers and values. And obviously, that's totally illegal. And that is the other meaning of the word fiddling. It's like messing around with the data to give the impression that the data is saying something which it isn't by having wrong figures, false figures. And of course, when you're fiddling bank accounts, basically you're doing embezzlement, which means you are putting
What means of embezzlement? Can you type it?
em- embezzlement is a white collar crime because it's usually done by managers and directors and people in power. So, embezzlement is when the people in charge of the finance of a company are actually putting that money into their pockets instead of being honest in what they do, and instead of being honest and being a person of integrity and managing the accounts correctly and legally in the interests of the company and the shareholders, instead they're like stealing money from the company accounts and putting it into their own personal
Oh,
bank accounts. That's
okay,
called
I understand.
embezzlement, as I've written in the Skype chat. You see that's
Yes,
embezzlement?
embezzlement, a
It's
very
it's a
complicated
white collar
word.
crime. It's done by people in charge, in authority, in a company, rather than the workers who would do blue collar crime rather than white collar crime, because they would do acts of theft like armed robbery of a bank, which obviously is much more visible than embezzlement, which is done behind the scenes, like in secret, very discreetly, which is much harder to detect and which is
Yes,
done by the people in charge, the directors of a company. You see that, Jerry?
yes.
Excellent. That's good. So let's have a look. Well, we've come to the end of our time for today.
Yes.
So tell me, how did you find the lesson, Jerry?
Oh,
Was
it's
it?
very good. I mean, it's very good. Yes, that's a very impressive lesson, and everything
Mhm,
went very well.
mhm.
in everything. Yes, basically that's a very good class. And thank you very much
That's
for
great. I'm very
short.
pleased to hear that. You're ever so welcome, Jerry, with the greatest of pleasure. That's wonderful. So, I'd like to thank you as well for the wonderful lesson, and I'm glad you enjoyed it as much as I did. It's great.
Yes. So see you next week, maybe.
Yes, I look forward to seeing you again next time in our next lesson together. Thanks
Yeah.
again, Jerry. All the best. Take care,
Yeah.
keep
Bye.
well, and see you next time. Thanks a lot, Jerry. Cheers. Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.